In our episode of Letters of African Writers, Ghanaian reporter Elizabeth Ohene reflects on the Duke of Wales' 2 visits to the Western African country. While the successor to the UK altar at first came to Ghana, I was a interviewer on the Everyday Graphics paper, and the talk in the news department was if Duke Charles could be outlined as beautiful. That was in 1977, and the Duke was a 29-year-old single person. All youthful single wealthy men utilized to be outlined as valiant. I believe such who told he was beautiful were in the most in the news department, and for a length period a big banner of him came to decorate a side over the desktop of one of the youthful female in the office space. 41 years after, Duke Charles has attended Ghana once again, in his other woman, Camilla Parker Bowles, on to the UK top committee in Accra. Several of the events on his route shape portion of the celebrations for his 70th date of birth. The pair include been lively making which royalty do, newcomer sights, looking pledge and connecting in dancing groups. On Saturday, they were guests of the Asante Hene, the king of the Ashanti, one of Ghana's major ethnical groups, who laid down on a specific right in so lotto on screen how it led to several interrogative why we would be request for any type of aid of nobody. Down there was a country feast on Monday, wherever the pair danced to high-life piece of music, the nation's so-known melodic styling. Ghana's CEO grandmother Akufo-Addo had done an intricate crouton and adorned Duke Charles in the highest country honor. I wondered if down there was a chamber sometime in Buckingham Castle wherever these sashes and gongs are stored. It was on Monday, the 4th day of the trip, how we eventually had a opportunity to listen the Duke say openly. By that period several of us were start to believe he had go to our nation to be seen but not heard. He, yet, done up for his 3 days of silent. He gave a social class to a packed meeting center. It was on a object how is shut to his cardiac, the environmental, and save our earth. He tell on environment changing, the vanishing pond Chad, plasticity waste management and the contamination of the planet's oceans. He forced us in Ghana to act a guideline part in the struggle to rescue the environmental. I stored wait for him to refer Gala Msce, the Ghanaian speech for illicit mountain, that epitomizes our destroying of the environmental. But he never did, and such who aware on these things said me he would not wish to say whatever how would audio dimly love receive implicated in Ghanaian policy. Duke Charles later had a meet at a really fantasy overnight clubhouse, Sandpit, at the bathing beach in Accra, debating the planet's plasticity meltdown in ecological campaigners. The bathing beach down there is amazingly nice. Elizabeth Ohene, Ghana is so complete of royal power, each countryside has a complete supplement, each some man claims to be a duke or duchess. I was one of the lot hundreds guest to a specific admission on Friday at the top commissar's accommodation to commemorate the trip and mark the duke's date of birth. The mob, on to the top committee, consisted generally of members of the UK Ghanaian diasporas, members of the UK society in Ghana, and Ghanaians of all walks of lifetime who stake a shut connect in the UK. I question I had always seen so lot uniformed, braided and medalled men by one rooftop. I wondered fair how lot uniformed men passing in the Duke. It set me thought how while I lived in the UK, I ever had large challenge insight the relation the UK human beings had to their king household. It was not ever precise to me if the bow, curatage and paper admiration were a real reflect of social sentiments. I solved the distinction was how Ghana is so complete of royal power, each countryside has a complete supplement, each some man claims to be a duke or duchess, and new chiefs come all the period, how Ghanaians could barely sense frightened by the conception of royal power or a UK duke, no question how lot rows of medals he had on his trunk. The admission honored to be outlined as specific, the decor was nice, the piece of music great, the thumb foods were devoured eagerly, down there was quite binge to hold the collection in nice humor, and down there were fascinators to hold yours eyes rapid about. Duke Charles came, stayed in a cordoned region, and a few human beings were permitted in to tremble his hands. He did not complete a solitary social speech through the whole night. The country feast on Monday overnight thick felt a slight more than weakened, although down there were quite haute couturier gowns to do any Vogue text editor sense at household. Down there was a Vauxhall how ended up in a screen of several items by the famous Ghanaian British planner, Oswald Boateng, who, we found, had been one of the beneficiaries of the Duke's confidence mercy. He was taking into account assist installation of his at first sewing store. Duke Charles, key facts. While he replied to the crouton by our CEO, Duke Charles shown he was an old brush at such a matters, or perhaps he was just display how he has a carefully so equipped and knowing personnel. Link had been done to the reality how members of the Duke's household had been newcomer these components for a length period, start in his great-uncle Duke Edward, the Duke of Wales, behind in 1925. Duke Charles got a big laughter of the auditorium while he recounted a history on his great-uncle newcomer the later Ohene, the crucial head of Akyem Abukwe, in the east of Ghana. The history goes how the Sky Outdoor and the Ohene gave an parasol to his guest to be capable to get behind, or, seemingly, the parasol was never refundable. So, the Duke of Wales driven an parasol for the present Ohene to substitute the one his great-uncle took off 93 years back. I suspicion it was not fair a fun history, but down there was several honor intended to be serviced. But who is to always know the secret ways of how UK royal power behaves and expects to be purified? The top committee surely stored up the protocols. The invite to Friday's admission set out it would begin at 6 p.m. and carriages would be at. The invite of our CEO's office space just told guests were to be sitting by 8 p.m. anything on carriages. That was perhaps fair as so, since our at first Dame Rebecca Akufo-Addo, other Dame, as the woman of the defect president is named, Samira Bawumia, ex-CEO Jerry Rawlings, his woman grandmother Kanatu and Duke Charles and the Princess of Cornwall danced deceased in the overnight. Testimony, if any were necessary, how we don't do carriages there. The side ends while it ends. The UK royalty had a flavour of Ghana and include pledge to be behind sooner rather than the 41 year it has undertaken among the recent trip and the